So, Joe Biden has announced the end of the combat mission in Iraq. Let me show you a little CNN International clip on this, and then we'll talk about it.
The U.S. combat mission in Iraq will officially end by year's end. Now, during a meeting at the White House with the Iraqi Prime Minister, President Joe Biden stressed the U.S. is not turning its back on a strategic partnership.
It's just to be available to continue to train, to assist, to help, and to deal with ISIS as it arrives. But we are not going to be, by the end of the year, in a combat mission.
Iraq has demanded an end to the combat mission, and the announcement makes the current status quo official. More details now from CNN's Awa Damon.
U.S. forces will be remaining in Iraq, perhaps a change in semantics, no longer being called combat troops, but rather as an advise and assist unit. And this is what the Iraqi Prime Minister says his country needs. But it's not just ongoing training of the Iraqi security forces. What is also especially critical to Iraq is America's intelligence sharing and other capabilities. And it would seem that at this stage, nearly a decade later, both the U.S. and Iraq want to avoid what happened towards the end of 2011 under the Obama administration, when what many would say a premature withdrawal of U.S. forces took place, which ended up being one of the many key factors that allowed for the re-emergence of ISI, the Islamic State of Iraq, ISIS's predecessor, which then very quickly grew and morphed into the most formidable terrorist organization that we have seen to date. But this ongoing U.S. troop presence, despite what is being publicly said, is not just about training and assisting Iraqi forces. It's not just about an ongoing battle against ISIS, which does continue to carry out devastating attacks in Iraq, albeit not to the same degree that it used to in the past. This is also about creating a counterbalance to Iran's growing influence, a counterbalance to the strength and power of the Iranian-backed Shia militias that many will argue are even more powerful than the Iraqi security forces themselves.
They admit it. They just admitted it. That's amazing. So they're basically saying, we're not in Iraq for anything to do with Iraq or protecting democracy and freedom or any of the things we were sold as the original reason. We're in Iraq because we want to stop the rise of Iran. So for those of you who don't know about Iraq, I mean, basically, it's a fake country. A lot of the, countries in the Middle East, the borders were arbitrarily drawn by Western powers in the recent past. And so 60% of Iraq are Shia, and about 40% are Sunni. Saddam Hussein, for the longest time, he was Sunni, and he ruled with an iron fist. He was a dictator. And so what they're afraid of, what the U.S. is afraid of is, if we pull out the 60% that's Shia, they're more aligned with Iran, and then you have Iran becomes a more powerful area if they're aligned with Shias in Iraq, and there are consequences for that. We don't want to put Israel in a position where they feel like there's, an ascendant Iran, and they become a more powerful nation, and we need to blunt the rise of Iran by staying in this strategic geopolitical region. And it's an amazing admission because they never, ever would have admitted that previously. Remember, the original reason we were told we're going into Iraq, Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction. And the implication was he's going to attack us any minute. Saddam Hussein's been dead for a really long time. And it's not like when he died, we were like, all right, time to come home. Well, you should have said that because you said that was the original reason we went in there. Actually, they said Saddam Hussein worked with Osama bin Laden to do 9/11. That turned out to be bullshit. Then they said he's got weapons of mass destruction. That turned out to be bullshit. Then he was, oh my God, he's such a bad dictator. Well, that was true, but we also backed him at the height of his atrocities. So the idea that we cared about preventing atrocities is laughable. So, I mean, think about it. They moved the goalposts 1,000 times until eventually they were just like, I don't know, we're there to bring freedom and democracy or something. Shut the fuck up, leave us alone. And now they're saying, okay, fine, it's about Iran. We want to blunt the rise of Iran, and so we want to stay there. Now they're saying, the combat mission is over. But they're admitting nothing's over. They're saying combat mission means you're going to have a fewer number of people there. You're still going to have contractors there. You're still going to have the U.S. military there. They're going to permanently be there. And, that has to be the case in order to keep security and prevent the rise of ISIS and prevent the ascendance of Iran. I mean, that's what they're saying. So how many times? I mean, you could go back. There are tweets still up right now from like 2012, the 2012 DNC, and Obama and Biden speaking, or it's from like 2010 or some shit, and they say, by 2012, we'll be out of Iraq or we'll be out of Afghanistan. And it's like, we're almost a decade on past that, dog. And now Biden's president, and now we're still getting the Weasley, mealy mouth. We're going to end the combat mission. $7 trillion wasted in the Middle East. How'd that go? And by the way, I love the idea like, well, the rise of ISIS is because we pulled out. Maybe the rise of jihadism has to do with the fact that we funded it. We funded it under Reagan. We armed and propped up the Mujahideen, who was fighting the Soviet Union, who was our enemy. So we helped spread radical Islam, and we're best friends with Saudi Arabia, and they spread radical Islam all around the world. It's what it is. That's what it is. So it's funny that we're like, oh, the problem is the rise of it was because we pulled out. We broke the region in the first place and should have never gone in. The West should have never drawn the arbitrary borders. We should have never invaded and stayed since 2001. Broke the region, led to a rise. Like, al-Qaeda wasn't in Iraq until we went in there. So you have the blowback effect, and it's always worse. The thing that we say we're trying to fix is the thing we always make worse. So now we know. They did the fake withdrawal from Afghanistan. To be fair, they did draw down. They left Bagram Air Force Base. That's good. But now we're doing bombing, and we're probably going to keep a certain number of people there to train the Afghanistan military who doesn't want to be trained and doesn't have any allegiance to Afghanistan. So we're going to stay there, and now we know we're going to stay in Iraq too, but we ended the combat mission. This is him wanting the popularity from ending a war while not actually ending the war. That's what this is. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.